The Bargain of Zephara Part 1. The crystalline towers of New Thessia gleamed under three suns, their light fracturing into prismatic cascades that painted the streets below in constantly shifting hues. Zephara stood at the observation deck of their apartment, her bioluminescent markings pulsing a dull amber, the color of worry among her people, the Kalari. "The collectors came again today," she said without turning. Her voice carried the melodic undertones characteristic of her species, though now it trembled with barely contained fear. Behind her, Marcus emerged from the bedroom, his human features drawn with exhaustion. After 5 years of marriage, he could read every subtle shift in her skin's luminescence, every modulation in her voice. "How much time do they give us?" 3 cycles, 72 hours in your Earth time. Zephara's markings flared orange, anxiety bleeding into panic. "If we don't pay the 200,000 credits, they'll seize everything. The apartment, our savings, my research position." Marcus moved beside her, his hand finding hers. Where their fingers intertwined, her skin responded with faint pulses of violet love even now. "We'll figure something out. We always do." But they both knew this time was different. The debt had started small, a loan to pay for Marcus's medical treatment when he'd contracted Rigelian fever 2 years ago. Human immune systems weren't designed for the pathogens of the outer colonies, and the cure had been astronomically expensive. Then Zephara's father had fallen ill on Kalari Prime, requiring expensive off-world surgery. Each loan had led to another, interest compounding at rates that made loan sharks on Earth look charitable. The Consortium didn't care about hardship stories. They had one policy: pay or lose everything. "There is one option," Zephara said quietly. Her markings had gone completely dark, the Kalari equivalent of someone unable to meet another's eyes. Marcus felt ice in his chest. "What option?" "I heard rumors at the research facility about the collector." Every species in the known galaxy knew about the collector, though few had seen it and lived to tell coherent stories. It was ancient, possibly older than the Galactic Council itself. Some said it was a being from a dimension humans couldn't fully perceive. Others claimed it was an artificial intelligence from a dead civilization, still carrying out its programming millions of years after its creators had turned to dust. What everyone agreed on, the collector bought and sold things. Not just objects, but concepts, memories, abilities, years of life, futures, pasts, and it always paid well. "No," Marcus said immediately. "Absolutely not, you're not going to that thing. It's the only way, Zephara, people don't come back the same. You've heard the stories. That merchant who sold his ability to feel joy. The pilot who traded away her memories of her children will find another way." Her markings flashed red anger, quick and hot. "What other way? We've borrowed from everyone we know. My family has nothing left. Your family on Earth can barely afford their own medical care. In 3 days we'll be on the streets, Marcus. In 3 days they'll revoke our residential permits and you'll be deported back to Earth." The word hung between them like a blade. Deportation, the ultimate threat in an interspecies marriage. If Marcus lost his residential status, he'd be sent back to Earth, and the bureaucracy to return could take years if it was approved at all. The Galactic Council had been cracking down on immigration after the Centauri conflicts. They would be separated, possibly forever. "There has to be another way," Marcus whispered, but his conviction had crumbled. Zephara's markings cycled through colors: amber, orange, blue, violet, a storm of emotions. Finally, they settled on a soft green, determination mixed with sorrow. "I'll just talk to it," she said. "Just to hear what it might offer, that's all." They both knew it was a lie. Part 2. The collector's vessel was docked in the gray quarter, where New Thessia's gleaming facade gave way to the city's underbelly. Here, the streets were dimly lit, and beings from 100 worlds conducted business that ranged from questionable to outright illegal. Zephara had come alone. Marcus had wanted to accompany her, but she'd convinced him to stay behind. "If we both go, we'll both be tempted," she'd said. Another lie, but a kind one. The vessel looked nothing like a ship. It resembled an enormous pearl, 30 meters across, its surface swirling with colors that hurt to look at directly. No visible doors or windows marked its surface, Yet Zephara knew that when the collector wanted entry, entry would appear. She stood before it, her heart hammering in her chest. Her markings had gone pale blue, fear, pure and undiluted. Why do you hesitate? The voice didn't come from outside. It resonated in her mind, in her bones, in the bioluminescent cells beneath her skin. It sounded like 1,000 voices speaking in perfect harmony, like the universe itself had learned to speak. I. I need to make a deal. All who come here need something, but what will you give? The pearl's surface rippled and an opening appeared, not a door, but a space where the vessel's reality simply chose not to exist. Inside, impossible geometry stretched in directions that made her eyes water. At the center of it all sat the collector. It had a form, of sorts. Humanoid, perhaps, if humans were made of liquid starlight and crystallized probability. It wore what might have been robes or might have been folded space-time. Where its face should be, there was a constantly shifting kaleidoscope of alien features, eyes, mouths, organs of sense that belonged to no species she recognized. I need 200,000 credits, Zephara said, forcing herself to step inside. To pay off a debt, money, the universal constant. The collector's amusement was palpable, but money is merely a symbol. What you truly need is freedom, security, the ability to continue your life with the one you love. Yes, she whispered, I can provide this. The question is, what will you trade? Zephara had prepared for this. She'd researched every story about the collector she could find. I can offer memories. I have a doctorate in xenobiology, years of accumulated knowledge, or I could trade some of my lifespan. Kalari lived for 200 years. I'm only 40. I could spare 20, maybe 30 years. The collector was silent for a long moment. Then it leaned forward, and Zephara felt as though she were being examined at a molecular level. Your memories of xenobiology are worth approximately 40,000 credits. Your years, perhaps 80,000. Neither is sufficient. Despair flooded through her, turning her markings a muddy gray. Then what could possibly be worth 200,000 credits? Him. The word struck her like a physical blow. What? Your husband, Marcus Chen. Human, 32 years old. Resilient genome. Adaptable psychology, strong will. He is rare, valuable. I will give you 300,000 credits for him. No, absolutely not. He's not. You can't buy a person, can't I? The collector's voice carried dark amusement. The consortium that holds your debt, they would take your home, your livelihood, your future. They would separate you anyway. At least this way you gain something. You survive. You continue. Your research saves lives. What would you do with him? Zephara's voice cracked. I am a collector. He would join my collection. He would be preserved, studied, appreciated. He would not suffer. He would not die. In a manner of speaking, he would become immortal. That's not living. Is deportation to Earth living? Is watching you work 3 jobs in the gray quarter, your talent wasted, your life shortened by stress and poverty living? You would grow to resent him. He would grow to resent you. The debt would destroy you both slowly, painfully. This way is cleaner, kinder, even. Zephara's markings flashed through every color in rapid succession, her body's attempt to process the horror of what was being offered. I need time. I need to think. You have 3 days until the consortium collects. I will give you 2 to decide. Return here in 48 hours with your answer. The opening reappeared, a clear dismissal. Zephara stumbled out into the gray quarter streets, her mind reeling. Part 3. The weight of choice. Marcus knew something was wrong the moment Zephara came home. Her markings were cycling erratically and she couldn't meet his eyes. What did it offer? He asked. It doesn't matter, we'll find another way. But there was no other way and they both knew it. Over the next day and a half they exhausted every option. They tried to borrow from loan sharks with even more predatory rates. None would touch them. They attempted to sell everything they owned. It wasn't nearly enough. Marcus even went to the Earth Embassy to inquire about emergency loans, but the bureaucrat there had laughed in his face. You married off-world, Mr. Chen. Earth doesn't provide financial assistance for citizens who choose to live in the outer colonies. 30 hours before the deadline, they sat in their apartment in silence. The 3 suns were setting, painting the crystalline towers in shades of amber and gold. It would have been beautiful if they'd had the heart to appreciate it. Tell me what it offered, Marcus said quietly. Zephara's markings went dark. Marcus, Tell me, so she did, every word, every horrifying detail. And when she finished, Marcus was quiet for a long, long time. How much? He finally asked. What? How much did it offer? Marcus, no. How much, Zephara? 300,000 credits. Her voice was barely a whisper. Enough to clear the debt and have money left over. Marcus stood and walked to the observation deck, looking out over the city he'd come to love. Earth had been dying when he'd left, overpopulated, polluted, racked by resource wars. New Thessia had been a paradise by comparison, and Zephara had been a miracle. A brilliant scientist who'd seen something in a human security guard beyond his species, beyond his lack of education or sophistication. She'd believed in him, loved him. Married him despite her family's objections, despite the bureaucratic nightmares, despite everything. If I go back to Earth, I'll die there, Marcus said. You know that, the planet's circling the drain. I'd be lucky to last 5 years in the conditions down there. So we find another way. There is no other way. He turned to face her and she saw tears streaming down his face. Zephara, listen to me. If we don't pay, you lose everything. Your research, your position, your future. Get deported to Earth anyway. We lose each other and we both suffer. At least you'd be alive, free. Would I, really? He laughed bitterly. Back on Earth in some overcrowded hab block, working 16-hour shifts in a recycling plant, breathing filtered air, drinking reclaimed water, watching the sun set through pollution clouds. That's not living, that's surviving, barely. And being part of the collector's collection is better. The thing said I wouldn't suffer, that I'd be preserved, maybe. He paused, struggling with the words. Maybe there are worse fates. Marcus, I can't sell you like property, like you're some object to be traded away. He crossed the room and took her hands. Her markings flared violet love even as they pulsed with amber fear. Then don't think of it as selling me, think of it as me making a choice, my choice, to save the woman I love. No, tears were streaming down her face now, bioluminescent and silver. No, I won't let you. It's not your choice to make. And there it was, the terrible truth they'd been dancing around. Marcus was right. If he chose to go to the collector himself to make his own deal, Zephara couldn't stop him. The money would still save them, save her. They held each other as the sun set and New Thessia's towers began their nightly bioluminescent display. Neither of them slept. Neither of them spoke after that. There was nothing left to say. Part 4, the transaction when dawn broke, or what passed for dawn under 3 suns in their perpetual dance. Marcus was already dressed. He'd put on his best suit, the one he'd worn when they'd gotten married. If he was going to become part of a collection, he'd be presentable. Zephara sat on the bed, her markings a solid, dead gray. She'd spent the night cycling through every color of grief, anger, and despair. Now she was simply empty. I can't let you do this, she said one final time. I know. That's why I'm doing it myself. Marcus knelt beside her. Zephara, listen to me. In all my life before I met you, I was nothing. A security guard, disposable, forgettable. You made me matter. You gave me 5 years of happiness I never dreamed I'd have. 5 years of loving and being loved by the most brilliant, beautiful being in the galaxy. 6 years, she corrected automatically. We met 6 years ago. He smiled. 6 years then. That's more than most humans get in a lifetime of real happiness. I'm not being sacrificed, Zephara. I'm choosing this, and I'm choosing it freely. It's not free if there are no other options. There are always other options, just not good ones. He stood, gently pulling her to her feet. Come with me, please. I don't want to do this alone. So they walked together through the waking streets of New Thessia, hand in hand, her markings occasionally flickering with violet before fading back to gray. Citizens of a dozen species passed them by, none aware that they were witnessing a tragedy. The gray quarter was quieter during the day, but the collector's vessel was exactly where it had been. The pearl's surface swirled with anticipation. You have decided. It wasn't a question. I want to make a deal, Marcus said, his voice steady. Myself in exchange for 300,000 credits transferred to my wife's account. Interesting. The merchandise negotiates its own sale. How very human. Do we have a deal or not? We do. But there must be a contract. Terms must be established. The space in front of them shimmered, and a holographic display appeared, text in 100 languages, scrolling simultaneously. Marcus couldn't read most of them, but the section in Standard English was clear enough. Contract of acquisition, the entity known as Marcus Chen, human male, age 32 standard years, agrees to enter the permanent collection of the collector in exchange for 300,000 galactic credits to be transferred immediately to the account of Zephara Tel'vastir. Terms: the acquired entity will be preserved in stasis for an indefinite period. The entity will be studied, displayed, and maintained according to the collector's protocols. The entity will experience no physical pain or deterioration. The entity will retain consciousness, but exist in a state of temporal suspension. The entity may be released only under circumstances determined solely by the collector. This contract is binding in perpetuity and cannot be revoked, negotiated, or amended. Temporal suspension. Marcus frowned. What does that mean? You will be aware, but time will pass differently for you. Moments will feel like moments, yet centuries may pass in the outside world. You will not age, you will not die, you will simply be. That sounds like hell, Zephara whispered, or immortality. Perspective matters. Marcus read through the terms 3 more times. There had to be a loophole, some escape clause, but the collector was ancient and thorough. This contract had been refined over eons. If I sign this, the money transfers immediately, instantly. And Zephara will be able to clear her debts. She'll be safe. She will have more than enough for her debts and resources remaining to rebuild her life. Marcus looked at Zephara. Her markings were flashing now: red anger, amber fear, violet love, blue sorrow, all cycling so rapidly her skin looked like a storm. I love you, he said. I need you to know that. Everything I've done, everything I'm about to do, it's because I love you. Then don't do this, she grabbed his arms. Marcus, please, we'll go to Earth together, we'll find a way. I'll give up my research, my career, everything. We'll survive together. No, we won't. You die on Earth. Your physiology isn't compatible with Earth's environment. You'd need constant medical treatment we couldn't afford, and watching you slowly waste away. He shook his head. That would be its own kind of hell. He turned back to the collector. I want one modification to the contract. You dare to negotiate, call it a condition of sale. I want you to add a clause that allows me to see Zephara once per year, just for an hour. Let me know she's all right. The collector was silent for a long moment. Then, interesting. The merchandise has emotional attachment strong enough to demand ongoing contact. This adds complexity, potential study value. Very well. Clause added. Once per standard year, the entity may observe, but not interact with Zephara Tel'vastir for a duration of 1 hour. This observation will be conducted remotely and without the observed party's knowledge. Not good enough. She should know I'm watching. She should be able to talk to me. Interaction creates variables, complications, emotional bonds that interfere with pristine observation. Then we don't have a deal. Zephara stared at Marcus in shock. He was negotiating with a being older than civilizations over the terms of his own imprisonment. The audacity was very human. Amendment accepted. 1 hour of interaction per year, via holographic projection. She may speak to you. You may speak to her. Physical contact is impossible, but communication is permitted. Done. The holographic contract updated with the new terms. Marcus took a deep breath and reached out. His hand passed through the hologram and he felt a tingling sensation as his biometric signature was recorded. The contract glowed, then vanished. Transaction complete. Funds transferred. Zephara's wrist chimed. She looked down at it numbly. 300,000 credits, more money than she'd seen in her entire life, bought with her husband's freedom. Come, Marcus Chen, your preservation begins now. Can I have 1 minute? Marcus asked. Just 1 minute to say goodbye. 1 minute. No more. Marcus turned to Zephara and pulled her into an embrace. She clung to him, her whole body shaking, her markings flashing through every color of anguish. You're going to do great things, he whispered into her ear. Your research is going to save lives. You're going to change the galaxy. And once a year I'll get to see it. I'll get to see you being brilliant and amazing, and I'll be so proud. I don't want to do great things without you. Her voice was broken. Marcus, please, there has to be another way. There isn't, and we both know it. He pulled back, looking into her eyes, those large, golden eyes that had first captured his heart 6 years ago. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll live, really live, not just survive. Promise me you'll be happy. How can I promise that? Because if you don't, then this was for nothing. If you spend the rest of your life mourning me, then I'm not saving you. I'm just changing the shape of your prison. He smiled, though tears were streaming down his face. Be happy, Zephara. Fall in love again someday. Have the life we were supposed to have. Just think of me sometimes. Every day, she promised. Every single day. Time's up. The opening in the pearl expanded. Marcus kissed Zephara one last time, a kiss that tasted of salt and sorrow and 6 years of love. Then he gently pushed her away and walked toward the vessel. I love you, he called back over his shoulder. I love you, she whispered, but he was already inside, the opening sealed. The pearl pulsed once, bright enough to make Zephara shield her eyes. When she could see again, the vessel was rising, ascending through New Thessia's atmosphere in complete silence. She stood in the gray quarter and watched until it was just another star in the sky. Then she collapsed to her knees and wept, great, racking sobs that made her markings flash like a malfunctioning light. Citizens passing by gave her a wide berth. Everyone in the galaxy understood grief, even if they couldn't always comprehend each other's joy. Part 5. After 5 years passed. Zephara paid off the debt that same day, the entire 200,000 credits transferred to the Consortium in a single transaction. The additional 100,000 credits she invested carefully. She moved to a smaller apartment, one that didn't constantly remind her of Marcus. She threw herself into her work with an intensity that alarmed her colleagues. Her research into cross-species genetic therapy won her accolades, then awards, then a position at the Galactic Institute of Medical Sciences, one of the most prestigious research facilities in known space. Her therapy saved countless lives, humans who could now survive on worlds that would have killed them, Kalari who could resist diseases that had plagued their species for millennia. She became exactly what Marcus had predicted: brilliant, accomplished, recognized throughout the galaxy. And she was utterly miserable. Every night she returned to her small apartment and looked at the holopic on her desk, her and Marcus on their wedding day, his arm around her waist, her markings bright violet with joy. She talked to him sometimes, telling him about her day, about her latest breakthrough, about the awards she'd won. The holopic never answered, but it helped a little. Then, exactly 1 year after Marcus had walked into the collector's vessel, her wrist comm chimed with an unknown frequency. She accepted the call, and Marcus appeared as a hologram in her living room. He looked exactly as he had the day he'd left, not a day older, not a hint of change. "Hi," he said, and smiled that crooked smile she loved. Zephara had prepared for this. She'd practiced what she would say, how she would present her accomplishments, how she'd prove that his sacrifice hadn't been in vain. Instead, she burst into tears. "I miss you," she sobbed. "I miss you so much it hurts." "I know, I miss you too." His hologram flickered slightly. "Tell me everything. Tell me about your research, your awards, your life. I want to hear it all. We've got an hour." So she talked. She told him about her breakthroughs, about the lives she'd saved, about the recognition she'd received. She told him about the small apartment, about the nightmares she still had, about the therapist she'd started seeing. She told him everything, and he listened with that patient, loving attention that had made her fall in love with him in the first place. "You're doing amazing things," he said when she finally ran out of words. "I'm so proud of you." "Are you all right, really?" Marcus hesitated. "It's strange. The collector keeps me in something it calls temporal stasis. Most of the time, I'm not really conscious. I exist, but I don't experience time passing. It's like being asleep without dreaming. But I'm aware of you. Even in stasis, there's this connection. I know you're out there. That helps." "Is it painful?" "No, it's more like loneliness, profound loneliness. But then I get these hours with you, and it's worth it." The hour passed too quickly. It always would. When Marcus's hologram began to fade, Zephara reached out instinctively, even though she knew her hand would pass through empty light. "Next year," he promised. "I'll see you next year." "Next year," she agreed. The hologram vanished, leaving her alone in the apartment with only the holopic for company. Part 6. The years between the years became a rhythm. 364 days of work of research of living, and 1 day of Marcus. In year 3, Zephara met someone. Kelly's was a researcher from Andoria Prime, brilliant in his field of quantum biology. He was kind, patient, and clearly interested in more than just collaboration. For a while, Zephara considered it. Marcus had told her to be happy to live. But when Kelly's markings flashed violet in response to hers, when she saw that hope in his eyes, she couldn't do it. She gently explained about Marcus, about the collector, about the once-yearly hologram calls. Kelly's understood and withdrew his interest gracefully. That year when Marcus appeared, she told him about Kelly's. "You should have said yes," Marcus said, though she could see the pain in his eyes even through the hologram. "I couldn't." "Zephara, I meant what I said. You need to live. I don't want you spending your life waiting for 1 hour per year. Maybe I'm not ready yet, maybe someday, but not now." He accepted that, though she could tell it troubled him. In year 7, Zephara's father died. The funeral was beautiful, a traditional Kalari celebration of life where mourners' markings created a light show that could be seen from orbit. Marcus appeared for their scheduled hour just days after the funeral. She broke down completely, and he stayed silent, just letting her grieve, his holographic presence a comfort even though she couldn't hold him. In year 10, Zephara won the Galactic Medal of Scientific Achievement. The ceremony was broadcast across 100 worlds. She wore the dress she'd worn to their wedding, her way of including Marcus in the moment. In their hour together that year, he told her he'd watched. The collector had allowed him to observe the ceremony. "You were radiant," he said. "And your speech was perfect. I dedicated the medal to you." "I know, thank you." In year 15, the Galactic Institute offered Zephara the position of Director of Cross-Species Research, one of the most powerful positions in galactic medical science. The job came with enormous resources, prestige, and influence. It also came with brutal hours and constant political maneuvering. She almost turned it down. The job would consume her life, leaving little room for anything else. But when she asked Marcus, during their hour that year, he encouraged her to take it. "You'll save more lives in that position than you ever could in the lab. You have to take it." "But it means even less time for myself, for life, for me," he smiled sadly. "Zephara, I get 1 hour a year. You're already sacrificing your entire life for that hour. Don't sacrifice even more. Take the job. Change the galaxy. That's what I'm here for, to make sure you can do that." So she took the job. And Marcus was right, she changed the galaxy. Under her leadership, the Institute developed treatments for diseases that had plagued multiple species for centuries. She brokered collaborations between rival worlds, using medical research as neutral ground for diplomacy. She became one of the most respected figures in the Galactic Council, her opinion sought on matters far beyond just medicine. The years continued. 20, 25, 30. Zephara's markings began to dim slightly, the first signs of middle age for Kalari. There were silver streaks in the bioluminescent patterns on her skin. She'd lived more than half her expected lifespan now. Marcus, in his temporal stasis, never changed. He was eternally 32, forever frozen in the moment he'd walked into the collector's vessel. In year 32, something shifted in their annual conversation. "You know what the strangest part is?" Marcus said. In this stasis, I've experienced maybe a few months of conscious time. For me, it's only been months since I last held you, but for you, 32 years, Zephara finished. More than half my life. Exactly, and I look at you still beautiful, still brilliant, but older, and I realize I'm becoming a memory, a ghost from your past that shows up once a year. You're not a ghost, aren't I?" His smile was gentle, sad. "Zephara, you've lived an entire life since we said goodbye. You've accomplished things we never dreamed of, and I've been preserved like an insect in amber." "Don't say that." "It's true, though, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that was always the point. I gave up my future so you could have yours, and look what you've done with it." Zephara's markings flickered through colors rapidly, a sign of emotional turmoil. "I would trade it all. Every award, every position, every achievement. I'd give it all back to have you here, really here." "I know, but you can't. And even if you could," he paused, "I'm not sure I'd let you." Part 7, The Proposition. Year 35 brought an unexpected visitor to Zephara's office at the Galactic Institute. Her assistant, a young Draxian named Kivek, announced him with an unusual level of nervousness. "Director, there's someone here to see you. He says he's from. Well, he says he represents the Collector." Zephara's markings flashed white, pure shock. In 35 years, the Collector had been nothing but a silent overseer of her husband's imprisonment. It had never reached out, never communicated beyond facilitating the annual meetings. The being that entered her office was humanoid but clearly artificial, a synthetic envoy, its body composed of liquid metal that shifted and flowed constantly. When it spoke, its voice was the same multi-layered chorus she remembered from that terrible day in the Grey Quarter. "Director Tel'vastir. The Collector sends its regards and a proposition." "What could the Collector possibly want from me?" "Your husband's contract is unusual. Most acquisitions have no ongoing connection to their previous lives, but Marcus Chen has maintained his bond with you. The Collector has found this intriguing, worthy of study. Get to the point." The envoy's form rippled, perhaps the equivalent of a smile. "Direct. Marcus Chen was correct about you. Very well. The Collector proposes a modification to the existing contract. It will release Marcus Chen from stasis and return him to you, fully restored." Zephara's markings exploded into brilliant gold, hope, pure and overwhelming. "You'd free him. In exchange for something of equivalent value, yes." And there it was, the trap within the hope. "What do you want?" "Your memories. Specifically, all memories of Marcus Chen. Every moment you shared, every conversation, every touch. Collector wishes to acquire them." The gold in Zephara's markings died, replaced by black shock so profound her body couldn't produce light. "You want me to forget him?" "The memories would be preserved in the Collector's archives. They would not be destroyed merely, transferred. You would remember the facts of your marriage, that you were married, that your husband sacrificed himself. But the emotional content, the lived experience, would be gone." "Why would I ever agree to that?" "Because Marcus Chen would be free. He would be returned to you exactly as he was, capable of resuming his life. You could have your husband back. But I wouldn't remember why I love him." "Love can be rebuilt. The Collector has observed that emotions recreate themselves when the underlying conditions are met. You fell in love with him once. You would likely do so again." Zephara's mind raced. To have Marcus back, physically present, freed from his temporal prison, it was everything she'd wanted for 35 years. But to lose their memories, to forget their wedding, their first home, their late-night conversations, the way he'd looked at her like she was the most important being in the universe. "I need to think about this." "Of course, the Collector is patient. You have until your next scheduled communication with Marcus Chen to decide, approximately 2 months in standard time. Discuss it with him if you wish. The decision must be made by both of you, as the contract modification affects you both." The envoy flowed out of her office, leaving Zephara alone with an impossible choice. Part 8. The final conversation. Zephara didn't wait for the scheduled annual meeting. She used her position and resources to force a communication with the Collector, demanding an early conversation with Marcus. To her surprise, the ancient being agreed. Marcus's hologram appeared in her apartment, confused. "Zephara, what's wrong?" "It's not time for our meeting yet." She told him everything. The envoy, the proposition, the terrible choice laid before them. Marcus was quiet for a long time after she finished. His hologram flickered with what might have been deep thought or might have been instability in the projection. "You have to take it," he finally said. "What? No, Marcus." "Zephara, listen to me. I've been in stasis for 35 years. Do you know what that's like? Even with the temporal suspension, even with only experiencing a few months of consciousness, it's maddening. The isolation, the endless nothing broken only by 1 hour of connection per year. I can't do this for another century. I won't survive it intact. But the memories are just that, memories. The person you are now, the accomplished, brilliant director of cross-species research who saved millions of lives, she's real. She exists. She matters. Our memories are beautiful, but they're the past." He leaned forward as if he could actually get closer to her. "I want a future, Zephara, with you. A real future, not this half-life." Zephara's markings cycled through angry reds and fearful ambers. "You don't understand. Those memories are all I have of you. They're how I've survived these 35 years. Every time I wanted to give up, I remembered our wedding or that trip we took to the Crystal Caves or the way you'd make breakfast on Sunday mornings. If I lose those, you'll still have me, the real me. Not a memory, not a hologram, the actual person. Will I? If I can't remember falling in love with you, will I even know who you are? What if we don't fall in love again? Marcus smiled that crooked smile. Then we don't. But isn't the chance worth it? Right now, we have nothing but 1 hour per year. If we take this deal, we at least have a chance at something real. What if it doesn't work? What if I forget you and you come back and we're just strangers? Then we start over. We date. We get to know each other again. Zephara, I fell in love with you because of who you are, your brilliance, your kindness, your passion for your work. Those things haven't changed. If anything, they've grown stronger. I think I'd fall in love with you all over again. You think? I'm pretty sure. His hologram flickered again, but his expression was earnest. Look, I won't lie to you, I'm terrified. Terrified that you'll forget me and never love me again. Terrified that we'll fail. But I'm more terrified of spending the next 150 years like this. This isn't living, it's preservation, and I'm so tired of being preserved. Zephara felt tears streaming down her face, bioluminescent and silver in the dim light of her apartment. I don't know if I can do this. You're the strongest person I've ever known. You can do anything. He paused. But Zephara, it has to be your choice. Both of us have to agree or the contract won't change. If you can't bear to lose the memories, I understand. I'll stay in stasis. I'll endure it for you. That's not fair. None of this is fair. It never has been. They sat in silence as much as a hologram and a person could sit together contemplating the impossible choice. Finally, Zephara spoke. If we do this, if I forget our memories, will you tell me? When you're released, will you tell me who we were? Every detail, every moment I can remember. And if I don't believe you, if I look at you and see a stranger, then I'll wait, however long it takes. His voice was gentle. I've already waited 35 years, Zephara. I can wait longer if I have to. Zephara's markings settled into a deep, contemplative blue. She thought about the years behind her, the loneliness, the ache, the hollow feeling that no amount of professional success could fill. She thought about the life she could have, the future that could exist if she was brave enough to let go of the past. Okay, she whispered. Let's do it. Part 9. The exchange, the transaction, took place in the collector's vessel, just as it had 35 years before. Zephara stood in that impossible space of folded geometry and refracted light, her heart hammering against her ribs. Marcus's form was there, not a hologram this time, but his actual body suspended in a column of shimmering energy. His eyes were closed, his expression peaceful. He looked exactly as he had the day he'd walked away from her. Time had not touched him at all. You have agreed to the terms. The collector's voice resonated through the space. Marcus Chen will be released. Your memories will be acquired. Will it hurt? Zephara asked. The extraction is painless. You will feel a moment of disorientation, then nothing. The memories will simply be gone as if they never existed. You will retain factual knowledge that you were married, that sacrifices were made, but the emotional resonance will be absent. And Marcus, he will remember everything. His memories remain intact. Zephara looked at Marcus's suspended form. This was her last chance to back out, to keep her memories and condemn them both to their half-life existence. But she'd made her choice. Do it. The collector moved, or perhaps space moved around the collector. A tendril of crystallized light touched Zephara's forehead, and she felt a strange tugging sensation, as if something was being gently pulled from the center of her mind. Images flashed before her eyes in rapid succession. Marcus's smile on their first date, the nervousness in his voice when he'd proposed, the feeling of his hand in hers as they'd exchanged vows, the quiet comfort of his presence during her father's illness. 35 years of memories playing out in seconds. And then nothing. Zephara blinked, disoriented. She was standing in the collector's vessel. A human man was suspended in front of her, being lowered from the column of energy. He gasped as he touched the ground, stumbling slightly. The collector's presence faded, and Zephara found herself standing in an empty street in the gray quarter, the human man beside her, looking around in confusion. Where? He turned to her, and his eyes widened. Zephara, she studied him. He was handsome in the way humans could be, approximately 30 years old. He looked at her with such naked hope and fear that it made her uncomfortable. "You're Marcus Chen," she said. It was a fact she knew, though she couldn't remember why she knew it. "Yes, and you're my wife." He took a step toward her, then stopped when he saw her markings flash yellow uncertainty. "You don't remember me. I know we were married. I know you sacrificed yourself to save me from death 35 years ago. I know you were kept in stasis by the collector." She recited the facts mechanically. "But I don't. I don't feel anything when I look at you. I'm sorry." Marcus's face crumpled, but he forced a smile. "Don't apologize. You did this to free me. That's incredibly brave." They stood awkwardly, two people who were apparently married but felt like strangers. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Can I buy you coffee or whatever the Kalari equivalent is? I'd like to tell you about us, if you're willing to listen." Zephara considered. She had responsibilities at the Institute, meetings scheduled, research to oversee. But something in this human's eyes, a depth of feeling that seemed at odds with their stranger status, made her curious. "All right," she said, "I can spare an hour." Part 10, Reconstruction. They went to a cafe that overlooked the crystalline towers. Marcus ordered earth coffee. Apparently his taste hadn't changed despite 35 years in stasis. Zephara ordered thermal nectar, a Kalari beverage. "So," she said, her markings neutral gray, "tell me how we met." Marcus took a deep breath. "You were giving a lecture at the University of New Thessia. I was working security for the event. You were talking about genetic therapy, and I didn't understand most of it, but the way you explained things, you made it beautiful. After the lecture, I approached you. I probably shouldn't have. I was supposed to be working, but I couldn't help it." "What did you say?" "I asked you to explain your research to me like I was 5 years old." He smiled at the memory. "You laughed. Then you spent 20 minutes breaking down complex xenobiology into terms I could understand. When you finished, I asked if I could take you to dinner so you could teach me more." Zephara listened as Marcus recounted their history. He told her about their first date, their first kiss, the moment he'd realized he loved her. He told her about proposing on the observation deck of the apartment they'd shared, about the wedding ceremony that had blended human and Kalari traditions. He told her about the debt, about his illness, about the terrible choice they'd faced. "And you chose to sell yourself to save me," Zephara said when he finished. "I chose to save the woman I loved, and apparently that woman chose to forget me to save me back." He looked at her over his coffee cup. "That's who we were, two people who loved each other enough to make terrible sacrifices." "Were," Zephara noted, "past tense." "Are," Marcus corrected gently. "You're still you, I'm still me. The love might be gone from your side, but everything that made me fall for you the first time is still there." Zephara's markings flickered, a brief flash of violet so quick she almost missed it. Love. No, that didn't make sense. She didn't know this man. But as he talked, describing their life together with such vivid detail, she found herself drawn in. The way he remembered her, brilliant, passionate, kind, was the way she wanted to be seen. And the way he described himself, protective, devoted, willing to sacrifice everything, painted a picture of someone worth knowing. "What happens now?" she asked. Marcus shrugged. "I have no idea. I've been in stasis for 35 years. I have no home, no job, no credits. I don't even know if my residential permit is still valid. Probably not." "It's not," I checked. "You're technically an illegal immigrant right now." "Great." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So I'm homeless and undocumented. Quite a catch for an accomplished director." Zephara's markings flashed red, anger, but not at him, at the situation, at the collector, at the universe that had put them in this position. "You'll stay with me. My apartment is small, but it's large enough for two." "Zephara, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Apparently we were married for 6 years. Apparently you loved me enough to sacrifice yourself. Apparently I loved you enough to forget you to set you free." Her markings cycled through several colors rapidly. "I don't remember any of that, but I believe you when you tell me it happened. The least I can do is help you get on your feet." "This is just charity then, for now." She met his eyes directly. "You said we could fall in love again. Maybe you're right, maybe we can't, but I think we owe it to our past selves to try." Marcus smiled, that crooked smile that Zephara didn't remember but somehow recognized. "I'd like that." Epilogue: 6 years later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of their apartment, a larger one now, befitting Zephara's status and their combined income, and watched the three suns set. It had been 6 years since his release. 6 years of rebuilding a life, a relationship, a love. The first year had been difficult. Zephara had treated him with polite kindness, but there was a distance between them. She'd helped him find work. His security experience was outdated, but his human resilience made him valuable for hazardous materials handling. She'd helped him navigate the bureaucracy to get his residential permit reinstated. They'd lived together like roommates, polite and careful, each giving the other space. Then, gradually, things had shifted. Zephara had asked him questions, not about their past, but about his thoughts, his opinions, his dreams for the future. He'd started cooking the meals he'd once made for her, and she'd remarked that she liked them, that they tasted like comfort even though she couldn't explain why. They'd started talking late into the night, just as they had before. She'd explained her research to him, and he'd asked questions that made her think about problems from new angles. He'd told her about the books he was reading, the Earth history he was studying, the way he saw the galaxy with fresh eyes after decades in stasis. They'd become friends. And then 3 years after his release, they'd become more. It had happened so gradually that neither could pinpoint the exact moment. A touch that lingered too long, a laugh that felt too intimate, a look across a crowded room that said everything words couldn't. One night, Zephara's markings had flashed violet love and Marcus had kissed her. She'd kissed him back and it had felt like coming home, even though she couldn't remember their first home together. They'd fallen in love again. Slowly, carefully, building something new from the ashes of what they'd lost. Now, 6 years later, they were happy. Different than before, perhaps, there was a shadow where her memories should be, a ghost of their first love that neither could quite grasp. But what they had now was real, solid, earned through choice rather than preserved in amber. Zephara emerged from the bedroom, her markings a soft violet glow. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing. The fact that we made it." Marcus turned to her. "Against all odds, we actually made it." She joined him at the observation deck, her hand finding his. Where they touched, her markings pulsed brighter. "Do you ever regret it, the choice we made?" Marcus considered. "Sometimes I miss the memories. I remember our first wedding and I wish you could remember it too. But then I think about our life now and I realize this is better. We chose this. Every day we choose each other. That's more powerful than any memory. Even though I don't remember falling in love with you the first time. Maybe especially because of that." He squeezed her hand. "You fell in love with me knowing nothing about our past, just based on who I am now. That's the purest love I can imagine." Zephara's markings cycled through colors: violet love, blue contentment, gold happiness. "I've been thinking," she said. "I want to get married again, properly this time with me actually remembering it." Marcus's breath caught. "Really? Really? We did it once before, apparently. Let's do it again, but this time I'll actually be present for it." She smiled. "What do you say, Marcus Chen? Will you marry me?" He laughed, pulling her close. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." They stood together as the sun set and New Thessia's towers began their nightly bioluminescent display. Two people who'd lost everything and found each other again, who'd sacrificed the past to build a future, who proved that love wasn't about memory but about choice. Somewhere in the depths of space, in a vessel of impossible geometry, the collector observed them through mechanisms beyond human comprehension. It added their story to its vast archives, another fascinating data point in its eternal study of sentient behavior. It had acquired Marcus Chen's story. It had acquired Zephara's memories of their first love. But it had never anticipated that they would create something new, something that existed beyond its collection, beyond its understanding. The collector, ancient and vast and powerful, had learned something from these two small beings. Some things, once given away, grow back stronger in new forms. Love was one of them, and in that realization, perhaps the collector itself had changed just a little. Perhaps that had been the true value of the transaction all along. The end.